All right, Genesis chapter 1. Way back in the beginning. Everybody knows at least the first verse.
Let's hope.
How much of chapter 1 do y'all have memorized?
In the beginning, God created heaven and earth.
Good.
And the sun was without,
And the earth? And the earth was without. And darkness
Was upon the face of the waters.
Of
the deep.
Deep.
And God said,
And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water.
that's right.
I'm reading it. I haven't
Uh-huh.
memorized it. I'm going to be honest.
I
know right
Okay.
here.
So let's start there. Genesis 1:1. It says, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Now, notice right off the bat, how many heavens are created there?
One, the singular.
The heaven. Because a modern perversion, an imitation of a Bible will say heavens plural on that verse, rather than telling you heaven singular. So that's one way you'll know when you're looking at a Bible, if you've got a real Bible or somebody's giving you an imitation. So that's that, and I've got to find my notes. Okay, so he says, somebody read that for me down through verse 1 to 5.
In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day.
Okay, so we just know, now I've covered this in detail before. I'll cover it again tonight, and I'll probably give you a bunch of verses that I've not given you before. I know I will.
Wonderful.
But he says there that he created the heaven and the earth, so whatever that is, you've got heaven and earth. Okay, so those are two things that he created. And he created light and darkness. He divided the light and the darkness. Okay, so we've got light and darkness. Okay, now, where's the sun?
That would have agreed to the 14th.
It's not there yet.
I think it's the 14th.
So what you've got is a globe, and in the middle is a dividing line. One side is light, and one side is dark. And one side he calls day, and the other side he calls night. Now, the globe, whether or not the globe is spinning is a whole nother issue we'll get into sometime. But for now, all we've seen is he's created light and dark. But he doesn't start it really that way. This is a recreation. This is something he's making for Adam. The original is in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Okay, hold your place right there and go to somewhere else. Yeah, here's extra notes. Go to Isaiah 45. Isaiah 45, verse 18. Isaiah 45, 18. This isn't according to my notes, and it's not according to anything. We're just making this up as we go, so the book isn't helping a whole lot yet, is it?
That's okay.
Isaiah 45, verse 18. All right, and if I find it, I'll let you know. He says, for thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth. He made it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord and there's none else. Okay, so he didn't form it vain. He didn't form it empty and void. So what transpires to go from verse 1 to verse 2? In the beginning he created it. Does he ever create anything without form and void? No. He always creates something perfect. So when he created the earth, it was perfect. You find this in Job 38. Job 38, verse 6. Job 38, verse 6 to 9. Well, we'll start it at verse 5. Verse 4. This is God talking to Job. Said, hey, you want to be a smart aleck? Answer some of my questions. Where wast thou when I laid the foundation of the earth? Okay, so that's creating the earth. Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measure thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Okay, so there's the creation that we find in Genesis 1:1. The foundation being laid, a cornerstone being put down, a line being stretched on it. And the sons of God are all saying, this is beautiful, we like it, we're all singing because we're happy about it. That's Genesis 1:1. Something happens, and we get to Genesis 1:2, and he says, the earth's without form and void. So that's a 360. The world has done a 360 from the way it was originally created. So what happens is, this is Lucifer's fall. There's a gap of time between verse 1 and verse 2. And you'll hear people call this a gap theory, because not everybody believes what I'm telling you. So you study it yourself and decide. I'm going to give you too many verses to refute, to say that it's not so. Look at Isaiah 14. Isaiah 14, of course, is the fall of Lucifer, but let's look at it and just notice some things. Isaiah 14, verse 12. Isaiah 14:12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? Okay, son of the morning, as in the morning stars sang for joy. That's when he was creating the earth. Son of the morning. How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Okay, this is Lucifer's fall, and everybody knows the story, but there it is right in God's explanation of it. Now I'm going to show you, he talks about this many times in the Bible. An event in the Bible, you'll notice where it won't match up 100% about the event you think it's talking about. It's because he's applying a principle, or he's giving you details about something else that are similar to another event. We'll look at a bunch of those and start drawing conclusions. Isaiah 23. Isaiah 23:11. Isaiah 23:11. This is the destruction of Lucifer's earth. He stretched out his hand over the sea. The sea we've not covered yet, but it will be covered when we get to talking about the deep. He stretched out his hand over the sea. He shook the kingdoms. So that's something you're going to notice, is that there's shaking, a whole lot of shaking going on when God gets mad. The Lord hath given a commandment against the merchant city. Okay, merchant city is another key phrase. You're going to find when we get to Ezekiel 28 that the devil is a captain, a merchant captain. merchant city, to destroy the strongholds thereof. You know what a stronghold is. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, spiritual wickedness in high places. There's your stronghold, something that's superhuman. Okay, look at chapter 24, verse 1. Behold, the Lord maketh the earth empty, just like we find in Genesis 1:2, without form and void, and maketh it waste. He turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. So who was inhabiting Lucifer's earth? Sons of God, angelic beings. Before there was Lucifer, they were still sons of God. They were not. There was no devil before the devil. So prior to that, Lucifer was on earth managing sons of God. Okay, look down at verse 3. It says, the land shall be utterly empty and utterly spoiled, for the Lord hath spoken his word. Verse 4. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. Something fades away, where is it? It's gone. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. They don't fade away, though, do they? Verse 6. Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Not destroyed, not demolished, desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are what? Burned, as in fire, as in the pit. And few men left. Look at verse 22. Let's go to verse 19. It says, the earth is utterly broken down. The earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moved exceedingly. There's the shaking again. Verse 21. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones. That's not any human you know about. That are upon high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. Verse 22. And they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered into what? The pit. Like where they're getting burned. And shall be shut up in the prison. And after many days they shall be visited. Jude chapter 1. There's only one. Jude.
I heard that hesitance.
Jude 1 verse 6. It's right before Revelation. In 3rd John and Revelation. Jude 1 verse 6. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. That's exactly what he's talking about in Isaiah. Prisoners kept in prison, and they're going to be visited. He's coming down to pay them a little punishment. Okay, so there's verse 2 of Genesis 1. Let's see it in another passage. Go to 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel 22. Second Samuel 22 verse 8. It says, the earth shook and trembled. There's that shaking again. The foundations of heaven moved and shook because he was wroth. That's not a man's name. That means he was mad. Because he was wroth. He was not happy. Look at verse 16. The channels of the sea appeared. The foundations of the world were discovered. At the rebuke of the Lord, at the blast of the breath of his nostrils. He sent from above. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. That'll be the deep we're going to find out about in Genesis in a minute. But he says that the channels of the sea appeared. And there's channels in what we have on earth is a picture of something that's in the celestials. And so in heaven, above the second heaven, there is a great deep. And in that deep there are channels. And he used those channels to destroy Lucifer's earth. They opened them up and dumped them out. And we'll find that in detail in a minute. Verse, where are we? Verse, okay, go to verse 28. And the afflicted people thou wilt say, but thine eyes are upon the haughty that thou mayest bring them down, as into a pit, as in where they get burned. Verse 33. God is my strength and power, and he maketh my way perfect. Okay, so you're either part of the crowd that's going to the pit, or you're not. So that tells us something. In Lucifer's time period, in his earth, we'll call it earth, but I'll give you the real name for it later. On his earth, there were inhabitants there. Some were good and some were bad. Not everything that was on Lucifer's earth was condemned. Not all of those beings. Here he's saying some of them are good and some of them are bad. The ones that are afflicted, you're going to save. Okay, so he was afflicting some of his people. I'm saying people, they weren't people, but they were beings that God had given him rule over. Look at Psalms 82. Psalms 82, verse 5. Psalms 82, verse 5. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. Okay, so if you're stupid, you're not going to understand this next phrase. He's hit it, and he said, these stupid people, they love being stupid, and they're not even going to understand what I'm saying, but here's a nugget. If you're smart, you can pay attention to it. Here's the nugget. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. Okay, something kicked the foundations of the earth out of course. That was 2 Samuel 22, when God got mad.
See, some people try to say that was a flood.
Yeah, we'll cover that in a minute. Yes, they do try to do that. Let's find it again in verse 6 and 7. I have said, ye are gods, as in the sons of God shouted for joy, and all of you children of the Most High, as in they're a child of God, sons of God, but ye shall die like men, and fall like one of the princes. Look at it in the next chapter, 83 verse 12. Here's what they were doing. Here's the revolt in Lucifer's day. Verse 12. Who said, let us take ourselves the house of God, the houses of God in possession. Oh my God, make them like a wheel, as stubble before the wind. And that's what he did. And if you read 2 Samuel 22, that's chapter 83, verse, what did I read, 11 and 12 or something? 12 and 13. That's what he does in 2 Samuel 22. He comes down and he demolishes something. Well, we know that's going to be when he came down and turned Lucifer into Satan. Look at verse 17. Let them be confounded and troubled. How long? Forever. Yea, let them be put to shame and perish. Okay, that's whosoever believes on the name of the Lord, see, shall not perish but have everlasting life. So you don't want to be on the perish group. Yeah, I quoted that totally wrong. What is that verse? Anyway, verse 18. That men may know that thou, whose name alone is Jehovah, art the most high over all the earth. Which is exactly what Lucifer was saying I'm going to do. I'm going to be like the Most High. He said, no, matter of fact, everybody's going to know you ain't. Everybody's going to know there's only one Most High, and it's God. Look at it in, go to Jeremiah 4. I wrote this whole book, and we've not used a single bit of it. Anyway.
No, but
We'll
I
get to it
added a
next
whole
week.
bunch to it.
Jeremiah 4:23.
Oh, that one's here.
Okay, good. Jeremiah 4:23. I beheld the earth, and lo, it was what? Without form and void, just like you saw in Genesis 1:2. And the heavens, and they had no light, just like we saw in Genesis 1:2. I beheld the mountains, and lo, they trembled, just like all that shaking we saw when Lucifer is punished. And all the hills moved lightly, all that shaking. I beheld, and lo, there was no man, and all the birds of heaven were fled. Now, if you look up birds in your Bible, you'll find a reference to 90% of the time a bird is a reference to something satanic. Verse 26. I beheld, and lo, the fruitful place was a wilderness, and all the cities thereof were broken down in the presence of the Lord and his fierce anger, as in 2 Samuel 22. For thus saith the Lord, the whole land shall be desolate, yet I will not make a full end. And that's exactly what he does when he destroys the earth that he had given Lucifer to run. Look at 2 Peter. 2 Peter 3. Peter 3. Begin in verse 3. Second Peter 3, verse 3. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lust, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? You ever heard that? People have been saying he's coming back for as long as I've been alive. Well, yeah, because he hasn't come back yet. For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were. What's the next phrase? From the beginning of the creation. So this is what he's talking about, the beginning of creation. Remember we saw in Genesis 1:1? In the beginning, God. This is the creation right here. So that's what they're talking about. It said everything's been the same since the second God created it. So he's going to take you back to creation and walk you through. Verse 5, for this they are willingly ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. Okay, so the world that then was, after he created in the beginning, got flooded. It was, he drowned it. Now, it's not Noah's flood. I'm going to show you why, the next verse. Verse 7. But the heavens and earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. When Peter's writing this, which side of the flood is he on?
This side.
Of course. He's not before Noah. So he says the earth that is now is not the same as the one that was. Well, if he's talking about Noah's flood, then he's messed that verse up. So he's saying there was a world before the one I'm on right now. Yes, there was. That was Lucifer. That was Genesis 1:1. Okay, we've thoroughly soak that subject. There's more verses that you can find on it. But that gives you a handle on it. So if the question comes up, be ready to explain it.
Makes me think of when John said, I've come baptizing with water, but there's someone coming to baptize with the Holy Ghost.
And with fire?
And he'll be coming back too to do that.
All right, so in your book, you'll see a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to read you on creation. In Genesis 1:3, there's a whole thing on creation versus evolution. I think we're all set. Nobody here is believing in evolution.
No way.
But if you find somebody that is, review the notes. Then you've got it there at hand, and you can talk to them about it. Okay, Genesis 1:2. Genesis 1:2. Genesis 1:2. Everybody knows that verse. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light. Okay, something's going to change now. We'll find a bunch of information on that earth, and I'm going to give it to you because you've got to read through the Bible many times to find it, because he sprinkles it all throughout there. He doesn't throw it all in one place, because this is a non-essential. It doesn't change your life one way or the other if you know this or you don't, spiritually. Now, you'll see appreciation for who God is, and you'll start seeing how the whole Bible fits together. He puts a lot of things in there that are not necessarily for you. You get to learn about Israel. That ain't you. They're examples you can use, but he puts a lot of stuff in there that doesn't have to do with you, just because he wants you to learn who he is, how he works, and see how powerful he is. All right, Genesis 1:2. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. What's the deep? The deep is water. We know what deep is. If you jump in the deep end, then you've jumped into water that's over your head. Okay, so let's find it in the Bible. This deep is not on earth. This deep was deep enough to have swallowed the earth. Job 38:8. Job 38:8.
Yeah, David Peacock told us each one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 4 hours long.
Oh yeah, we can go for hours, but we're not going to. Or who shut up the sea with the doors when it brake forth as it had issued out of the womb? Okay, so this is the same passage we read earlier. If you look back up there, who laid the foundations of the earth and who measured it? Okay, so after creating the earth, God opened up a sea of water that swallowed the earth. That's not Noah's flood. Big difference. We read all the passages there in Jeremiah about it being desolate, fading away, and no inhabitants. Okay, that's different than Noah's. Many did fade away and become desolate and die and become deceased. However, 8 did not. There was a whole ark full that God was going to replenish the earth with. Okay, so that's the deep. The deep is over your head and under your feet, physically on the globe. So over the globe and under the globe, above us and below us. Genesis 1:3 is a good spot to put creation versus evolution, because Genesis 1:3 is the beginning of what we know of as the creation week. When he begins to recreate this earth for man. It had been created. God let Lucifer loose on it. He became the devil. When he became the devil, God destroyed it. God pulls it back up, recreates it for Adam and Eve. And that's where we begin in Genesis 1:3 through the rest of the chapter. So that's why I say there's a gap in it. There's a gap of time, and that gap spans 7,000 years. Look at verse. Let me. Yes. Let me do this. Let's explain what we have now. The universe we know about right now has three heavens. It didn't begin that way, but it does now. Now it has three heavens. There's three, but originally we saw in verse 1, heaven singular. But it has three now. So you'll find the verses there under the universe shape. That's going to show you that the universe is shaped like a pyramid. And in that pyramid, you've got Earth in the center. For all you centers. I mean, you got clouds around here. Okay, so the first heaven is our atmosphere. The first heaven. Then the second heaven is outer space. Second heaven. And then there's a great deep. Above us and below us. And that deep, that deep was at one time all together, not split. We're going to read in a minute that he creates a firmament. Okay, that's a heaven. That's where he splits things up. God's throne is here in the third heaven. Third heaven. And of course, the deep you find in Job is frozen. The face of it is frozen. That's why Revelation tells you about a sea of glass. Okay? It's because the face of the deep is frozen and his throne is sitting on top of it. Alright, so that's the universe shape. The original earth, Isaiah 66:1. Isaiah 66 verse 1, and you can find this several places, but I'm just going to use this one. Thus saith the Lord, the heaven is my throne. Okay, that's the one he's talking about. The earth is my footstool. Where's the house you'll build unto me? And where's the place of my rest? Okay, so he says, this is where I sit up here in the third heaven, above the deep. And I can put my feet down here on this footstool. And if I want to, I can kick it out. And that's what he did one day. Okay, so that's Lucifer's earth. When God decided to create in Genesis 1:1, he created heaven and earth. Earth he handed over to the archangel Lucifer. He said, you go down there and run this. He went down there and ran that. That globe had a name. It wasn't called Earth.
Eden.
Called Eden. Okay, where do you find that? It's right there. The name of the first earth is Ezekiel 31.
The name of the first earth is Ezekiel 31.
Ezekiel 31. Ezekiel 31 verse 9. I can find it. Ezekiel 31 verse 9. I have made him fair by the multitude of his branches, so that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of God envied him. So all the trees means this globe here. And they're in the garden. He happens to be in the garden. But this whole globe is Eden. This whole thing is Eden for Lucifer. God does it to rub his nose in it when he puts Adam and Eve in a garden and calls it Eden. He says, look, let's just show you what you're missing out on. perfection, happiness. Everything's working out just fine. And we're going to call it the thing I destroyed that you had, Eden. Now, he names the earth we're on something. Look at Genesis 1:1 again. Genesis 1:1. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Is heaven or earth capitalized? Okay, so those are generic names, not a proper name. When it becomes a proper name is when God names it. Look at verse 10. And God called the dry land capital earth. So that's where he names Adam's globe. It's called earth. It had another name before that. Okay, Lucifer ran this earth for how long? He ran for 7,000 years.
Ran it into the ground.
Below the ground, in the water. He ran it for 7,000 years, and I'll show that to you. And I'm giving you a lot of stuff that most people don't buy into, and that's okay. They can take it or leave it. But they at least need to be exposed to all the verses on it. Deuteronomy 11, verse 21. Deuteronomy 11, verse 21. It says that your days may be multiplied, and the days of your children in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give them, as the days of heaven upon the earth.
John, what you...
Deuteronomy 11:21.
Okay, I have, oh, Joshua, no wonder.
Deuteronomy 11:21. As the days of heaven upon the earth. So he says, whatever the days of heaven are different than the days of the earth. And he's asking for the same length of time on earth for the children of Israel as the days have been for heaven. What are those days? 7,000 years, and I don't know if I can cover all of the verses to prove that, but just mark that in your mind and we'll hit it soon enough. 7,000 years. So, the days of Lucifer's earth was 7,000 years. Now, I believe it was actually 7,000 minus 70 because the time period coincides with something else, and I can't go into all that either, but
But
anyway.
it sounds awfully familiar.
It should.
Yeah. 70 weeks, the 70
Oh, yeah, 70 week annual.
Yes.
weeks.
Yep. Look at, we saw 2 Peter 3. That's how Lucifer's earth is destroyed. That's the demise of Lucifer's great plan that God had for him. Let's look at it in the passage we've not seen yet, Ezekiel 28. Ezekiel 28. Okay, Ezekiel 28, you'll notice something in this passage. It's verse 1. The word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus. Okay, so this is a rebuke to a prince of Tyre. Then he's going to go on and he's going to say in verse... Where does he switch? Right around 8? 12. Yes. Verse 12. Verse 11. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying... So see, he starts out the very same way it started out in verse 1. So he's giving him a second rebuke. Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus. Okay, so he's gone from prince to king. There's a time period there. So, this is going to obviously be Lucifer's earth, and it's apparent from the passage, but it's 7,000 years. There's a time period where God gives Lucifer to repent, and he didn't repent. God gives everybody a chance. Even the devil got a chance, and he destroyed it. He wasted it. Don't waste a chance God's given you. That's his mercy. Notice something else. He allowed him to go from prince to king without requiring him to repent. He gave him opportunity, but he didn't require it. And he allowed him to be promoted. You having a great life in spite of the fact that you're in rebellion against God has nothing to do with whether or not God's looking. He's still looking, as he did with Lucifer. Well, we don't want to go to preaching now. Verse 5. By the great wisdom and by thy traffic. Okay, so he was trafficking in something. And I don't mean illegal drugs. I mean, there was some sort of a merchandise going on, a merchant. Thou hast increased thy riches, okay, wealth, and thine heart was lifted up because of thy riches. Therefore thus saith the Lord God, because thou hast set thine heart as the heart of God. We saw that in Isaiah 14. Behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of nations, and they shall draw their swords against thee, against the beauty of thy wisdom, and shall defile thy brightness. Verse 9. Wilt thou yet say before him that slayeth thee, I am God, like you did in Isaiah 14? But thou shalt be a man, that is, men get destroyed, and no God in the hand of him that slayeth thee. Thou shalt die the deaths of the uncircumcised by the hand of the strangers, for I have spoken it, saith the Lord God. So that's his demise. That's the earth at the time Lucifer gets condemned. Alright, God does something else. After he's destroyed Lucifer's earth, I think he lets it sit in the water for 70 years. Then he yanks it up and starts recreating it, and he lets Adam have it. In the process, he does something. He takes that deep that he's pulled the water, or pulled the earth up out of that water, the deep, and he does something to it. He puts a command on that water that it stay up top and it stay down below. And here's the commands. Psalms 148. Psalms 148. Psalms 148 verse 4. Psalms 148 verse 4, he says, praise ye him, ye heavens of heavens. Okay, that's not singular anymore, that's plural. So we know it's ours, like what we have, 3 of them. And ye waters that be above the heavens. Okay, so there's water above us. Water above the atmosphere. Outer space, it's above that. Look at it in Job 38:30. Job 38:30. Job 38:30 says, the waters are hid as with a stone. So it's hid, it's hard as a rock. And the face of the deep is frozen. So, the water that's above the earth, above the heavens, that deep has a frozen surface on it, just like we talked about earlier. Revelation 4:6. It says, and before the throne, this is God's throne on the third heaven up here, there was a sea of glass, like in a crystal. In the midst of the throne, round about the throne were 4 beasts, full of eyes before and behind. Okay, so God's throne is this deep. And that deep is the same one that destroyed Lucifer's earth, or buried it, drowned it. Look at it in Psalms. Stay in Revelation. Look at chapter 15, verse 2. Back up to verse 1. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire. Now that's a pretty crazy thing. How do you put ice and fire together? God can do it. He just did it. And them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand upon the sea of glass, having harps, the harps of God. Okay, so there it is. The deep is frozen, and it's the floor of the third heaven. It's where God's put his throne. Look at it in Psalms 24. That's why when you buy a freezer, they call it a deep freeze, because it's frozen. The deep is frozen. They probably didn't know what they were doing, but they said it right. Proverbs 24, 1-2. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. For he hath formed it upon the seas. Okay, what seas is he talking about? Okay, if he formed it on the seas, founded it on the seas, founded, not formed, founded, or he founded it. Okay, so if he's founded it on the seas, it doesn't mean that it's the oceans. It's a different kind of seas. It's the deep. The deep is also called many waters. It's called seas, and it's called the deep. You have several references to it. This is it here. Verse 2. For he hath founded it upon the seas and established it upon the floods. Another name for the deep. Floods. Okay, so our earth is right in the middle of both of those. The floods, the seas, the deep. He set a bound for it, though. Look at Job 38:1. Job 38:1, he said, that sea, even though it's over our head and it's below us, it can't rise above and swallow us. And the deep that's above us can't fall out of the sky and drown us. Because of one thing, because God said so. That's the only reason. Job 38. Job 38. Where's Job, man? Judith and Bell and the Dragon.
That's right after Jude, really?
Job 38. Yeah, verse 8. Or who hath shut up the seas with the doors when it brake forth as it had issued out of the womb? Okay, that's when he drowned Lucifer's earth. Verse 11. And said, hitherto shalt thou come, but no further. And here shall thy proud waves be stayed. Okay, so he's stayed it. He said, look, this is where you stays. Third heaven, that's your boundary. You can't drop. Now he makes exceptions to those. When we leave, when we go up in the rapture, we're going to go where? To the throne of God, the third heaven. So you've got to go through the great deep.
It's ice.
He's got channels.
The top of it is ice, correct. And there's channels. It's the Red Sea. And when we get there, we'll cover that too. But the Red Sea was the illustration of when we are raptured out. We're raptured through that sea. And that right now is full of something that's red. The blood of Jesus Christ. He took it to heaven, and it's right there. So, there's something that the devil plays in. He plays in the great deep right now. That's his playground. Leviathan, that's right. That'd be in chapter 41 and 42 of Job. And when we go out, he's going to try to capture everybody he can. But he can't, because we get a guide that guides us through, just like Moses guided the children of Israel through. All right, we better stop there. I could go all night. But that's just some information on the first verse or two. And this will not cover by any means every verse. There's no way we could do that. I'm just going to go through and pick out certain passages that have a lot of information on them. Or a passage where there's questions about it. Or it's a troubled passage where people give you different explanations for. And those things I'll just give you a bunch of Bible for, and you can make up your own mind and figure it out from there. All right, Chris, you want to pray for us, and we'll call it a night.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for your great love and mercy. Thank you for your chastening hand. Thank you, Father, for the word that you prepared. I pray, Father, that you help us to apply this truth as we go out into the world and meet people. Help us, Father, to keep this truth as we leave tonight. And just thank you for your incredible love in Christ's name. Amen.
All right. I don't think I used my notes at all. We just ad-libbed it tonight.